Okay, in this lesson we are going to be looking at finding the greatest common factor for a set of numbers, and then we're going to add variables into this too. But we're going to start with numbers. The greatest common factor, abbreviated GCF, is basically the biggest number that goes into, in this case, in number 1 here, both 16 and 40. So you want the biggest number that goes into both of those. In other words, the biggest number that 16 and 40 are both divisible by. So I think it's easiest because we're going to do this first one by hand actually, and then I'm going to teach you your calculator because your calculator is not foolproof. So I think it's easiest to figure out, first of all, the factors of 16. So we know 16 can be 1 and 16. We know it can be 2 and 8. We know it can be 4 and 4. And that is all that makes 16. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that list. I'm going to find the biggest number on that list. So my choices are 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. The biggest number that is on that list that goes into 40. So obviously we know 1 goes into 40. We know 2 goes into 40. 4 goes into 40 because 4 times 10 is 40. 8 goes into 40 because 8 times 5 is 40. And 16 does not go into 40. You can also list these factors if you want. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8, and you want to find the biggest number that's on both lists. So that would be obviously 8. Okay? If we were to do this on our calculators, what we would need to do is follow the directions that are there, of course. And I need to pull up my calculator here first, so hang on just a minute. So you're going to follow the directions there. You will find the math key on your calculator. And the math key is right below the green alpha key. So you'll hit math, and then you will right arrow over to number. So I will hit math right below the green alpha key. I will right arrow over to number. And then you want to scroll. I'm going to actually hit number 9, but you can also scroll down if you want to see number 9 is GCD, which is greatest common divisor. Instead of GCF, the calculator calls it GCD. So I'm going to hit number 9. Then I'm going to put my two numbers in, 16, and then a comma, which is right above the number 7, and then 40. Close my parentheses and hit enter, and you can see that you get 8 also. So your calculator works great when you're dealing with just two numbers at a time. This next one, we have 3 numbers, and so using that method on our calculator that we just did before will not work because your calculators can only handle 2 numbers at a time. But I'm going to start with 24. So here we go. I'm looking for the biggest number that goes into 24, 48, and 72. So 24 we know is 1 and 24. We know it is 2 and 12. We know it is 3 and 8. We know it is 4 and 6. Okay? Then I'm going to go to 48. So 48 we know is 1 and 48. 2 and 24. 3 and 16. 4 and 12. And 6 and 8. 72 is 1 and 72. 2 and 36, 3 and 24, let's see, 4, does 4 go into 72? 5 does not, 6 does not, let's see, my thing's going kind of wacko on me here. Okay, sorry, I had an issue with my smartboard here. Okay, 4 and 18 goes in there. 5 does not go, is not divisible by, or 72 is not divisible by 5. 6 and 12, and then 8 and 9. Okay, so there's all of the factors of 24, 48, and 72. What you want to do is you want to figure out the biggest number that is on all 3 of those lists. It has to be a number that's on all 3 of those lists. And the biggest number that's on all 3 of those lists actually is 24. Okay? 24 times 1 is 24, 24 times 2 is 48, 24 times 3 is 72. So 24 is the number that goes into all of those. Okay, now we're going to start throwing some variables in there. So the first thing we're going to look at when we've got variables is, first of all, just the numbers. Okay, I'm looking at 5 and 30, and I'm trying to figure out the biggest number that goes into 5 and 30. Well, we know that 5 is only 1 times 5, and 30 can be 1 and 30, 2 and 15. Most of you don't have to go through this whole process. 3 and 10, 4 doesn't go in there, and then 5 and 6. The biggest number that's on both of those lists, of course, is 5. 5 is the number that goes into both 5 and 30. So 5 is my GCD when I look at my numbers, or my GCF. Then when I look at my variables, I want to think about, is there a variable that goes into both x and y? Both x and y, the only thing they are divisible by is 1 in itself. So there is not a variable that goes into both x and y. So my greatest common factor in this case is simply 5. In my next one now, first of all, I will deal with, again, just the numbers. So I have 8 and 12. So 8, we know, can be 1 and 8, and 2 and 4. And 12, we know, can be 1 and 12. 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And the biggest number that's on both of those lists, of course, is 4. The biggest number that goes into 8 and 12 would be 4. So my greatest common factor number-wise is 4. Then when I look at my variables, when you see this x squared right here, x squared really means x times x. And x to the 4th right here really means x times x times x times x. So you want to look at what those two expressions have in common. What do they share? And at the very least, they both have at least an x squared. This one has some extras over here, but the one on the left, the 8x squared, has 2 x's. The one on the right also has at least 2 x's. So your greatest common factor right here is x times x, which we know is x squared. So my greatest common factor in this case is 4x squared.